James and Ben here for Odds Checker US, talking about UFC 275, which goes down this Saturday in Singapore. We're not going to waste any time here. We're going to get right into the main card. Opening up the card in just a second UFC fight, we've got Della Madeleine taking on Ramzan Ameev. And right now you can see most books having Della Madeleine as the favorite here. The comeback on Ameev plus 115. Ben, which way are you leaning on this one?
I'm not sure if I trust the books on this one. I do kind of like Ameev. He's the Dagestani. You know what they're known for. Their control, their grappling, all that kind of stuff. Madeleine, I just don't know if he's going to have what it takes to kind of, defend that from Ameev. I do think that in the grappling department, which is the way Ameev will go, like undoubtedly. I just don't know if Madeleine is going to be able to handle that. He's the better striker, and yeah, he is the favorite in this fight. He's younger, but I like the fact that, Ameev has a little bit better resume. He's fought the better guys, and I do like him to use his grappling to cash as the underdog here. If he was the favorite, I don't know if I'd bother with it, but I do like him as an underdog here, so I'll take him.
Yeah, really tricky fight. A couple things. Della Madeleine, a lot of people made a lot about his UFC debut over Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez had 4 fights. Like, it was a complete mismatch. And I feel like people kind of amplified that win a lot, talking about how this guy's going to be a problem. But I mean, Ameev would do the same thing, I think. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The thing with Ameev, though, that kind of is a little bit worrisome is just, that anytime he gets that step up in competition, it tends not to go well for him. And I'm not sure if Della Madeleine fits that bill, but if you look at it here, the loss to Rocco Martin, the loss to Danny Roberts, these are fights I think he should have won, and he hasn't. So that's where there's a bit of a concern there. You mentioned the experience as well, a little bit of an edge there. I think from a betting perspective, it's a dog or pass situation. I do think there is value there in Ameev. I'm taking Della Madeleine, though, just because of the youth. And I think, he is good. And if it does stay on the feet, I think that he could potentially win this fight. But personally, I will not bet Della Madeleine in this fight because we don't know enough about him. He's got, again, just the one UFC fight against a guy that I don't even think is UFC caliber. So the pick's going to be, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, Ameev is also coming off that really, really tough split decision loss, which a lot of people think he didn't lose to Danny Roberts. I actually rewatched that one just recently. And I mean, I don't think he lost either. A lot of people also agreed with the fact that he won that fight. So that's a tough one to come off of. You kind of think that's sitting in the back of his mind. He's also never lost back-to-back in 25 fights. So could be a little bit of a bounce back fight for him. But I don't know. I like the fact that he's an underdog here. But like you said, this is a very close fight. I think if it stays on the feet, Madeleine is going to win. If Ameev can use that grappling, he can dig it. So.
Next fight we're going to look at here, Rogerio Bontorin taking on Manel Kopp, and right now Kopp is the favorite here, almost a 3-1 favorite here. He's minus 235. The comeback on Bontorin plus 190. Which way are you going on this one, Ben?
Bontorin, he's on a little bit of a skid right now. He's 0-3-1 over his last 4 fights. He hasn't picked up a win in a few years here. He's coming off that tough split decision loss to Royval. He looked pretty good, but I don't think he won the fight, but it was definitely really close. So, and that's tough because Royval's, he's a really good opponent. So I think that was a tough fight for him. And this one will be another tough one for him. Definitely. He's coming in as quite the big underdog. And this is a fight I do think Kopp will win, but I'm not sure if he's necessarily worth the minus 230 price here. So this one isn't going to be a bet for me on either side, but because I think Kopp is the better fighter pretty much anywhere this goes. But I think if anything, Bontorin would be best to try and take him down, try and use some grappling here. Because on the feet, I mean, Kopp, his hands have looked, incredible. 2 knockouts in his last 2 fights, including Ode Osborne, who we just saw this past weekend. Very dangerous fighter himself, and he got a pretty impressive knockout win over him. So I think Bontorin could get knocked out, but I just don't know if this price is right to lay anything on Kopp. Maybe put him in a parlay, but for me, I don't really like either side in this one.
I like Kopp in this fight. I'm with you. I don't like the minus 235. What I do like is the knockout prop, which I think last time I checked, I'm just going to have a quick look here. I think it was actually decent. And, again, he doesn't win every fight, but I mean, a lot of books don't have it, but I'm seeing some that, might be close to plus money. If it's anything close to that, I'm definitely going to play that. This guy's got dynamite in his hands. I think he's got some of the best knockout power in that weight class, maybe next to a guy like France. So I think that's the play if you're going to do it. But this is Kopp's fight to lose, in my opinion. I think he's, you look at his losses in the UFC, especially the Nicolau fight. I thought he won that fight. Pantoja, who's got a win over Brandon Moreno. Like, these are not bad losses to have. So I just think he's going to go out there and take care of business. And you mentioned Brandon, or talking about flyweights, Zuma Gulov, who we saw last weekend lose a pretty close fight. He knocked him out in the first round. So I really like Kopp in this fight. I think he gets it done. I'm not going to lay the minus 235, but maybe look for that knockout prop instead. I think that's the path to victory for Manel Kopp. Okay, Weili Zhang, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, the rematch. Only 3 rounds. I'm kind of bummed out about that because their first fight was 5 rounds, one of the best women's fights of all time. As you can see here, Weili Zhang, a slight favorite here. Well, yeah, minus 165. The comeback on Joanna Jedrzejczyk, plus 140. Where are you going on this one, Ben?
This is hard. Like you said, probably the best fight of all time in that strawweight division. And, that was a really good fight. And what's funny enough is Joanna, she's fighting the same person back to back. Her last fight was over 2 years ago. We've seen Weili, fight for the title now versus Namajunas, who Joanna also fought twice for the title, lost both times. And, Joanna, I mean, absolute legend of a fighter. She's fought for the title 10 times now. And could we see her maybe go back? Maybe. But, I mean, she's getting a little older now. It's hard to say how much she's really been training to in this time. I saw people saying she was, focusing on her social media and all that stuff. But she's a professional. So, she was probably training that time out. It's just hard to see how someone can be at her age and come back after 2 years, after no fights, and come out as an underdog against a really dangerous opponent. Who's a really good striker. So I don't know. I think this line is priced right. She should be that plus 140. And this one I was bouncing a little bit back and forth on, but I am going to take Weili on this one as the favorite. I like the price.
Yeah, I think you have to go with Weili here based off what you just said. Her last fight, Joanna Jedrzejczyk's last fight was against Weili Zhang almost 2 years ago. And it's not like this is like a Dominic Cruz situation where he's coming back to fight like Takeya Mizuzaki or something like that. Like Weili Zhang is still one of the top fighters in the weight class. The other thing you mentioned is the common opponent in Rose Namajunas. With Joanna Jedrzejczyk, she got finished against Rose in the first fight. And then the second fight, I thought Rose clearly won that. I know it was a decision, but Weili had a fight with Rose last and it was close. Like it could have gone either way there. So you can kind of use a bit of MMA math there. I think the play here, honestly, well, I mean, I think you could either take Zhang by decision or you could just take the fight goes to decision prop. I don't see a finish in this fight. It's 3 rounds.
I agree.
It's not 5. Neither of these fighters, I mean, I know, Zhang obviously has the stoppage win over Andrade and a few others as well, but Joanna Jedrzejczyk, she's been finished 1 time in the UFC by Rose, and that was a couple years ago. I don't see that happening here. So I don't like, if you want to play it safe, you can just go fight goes the distance and maybe parlay that with something else. But if you're like me and you're like Weili Zhang, you get a little bit better value here per by decision. So that's where I'm going. Weili Zhang by decision. I think she gets it done unless Joanna Jedrzejczyk, comes out a completely different fighter. But it's just that's too tough to bet on for a fighter at 34 who hasn't fought in 2 years. So I'm going Weili Zhang to get it done.
Definitely, I agree.
Okay. Next fight, Valentina Shevchenko, Talia Santos. Talia Santos, a huge underdog in this one, as it usually is when you're fighting Valentina Shevchenko. Plus 450. Valentina Shevchenko, the favorite, minus 630. Who are you going with, the champ or the underdog?
Man, this fight, honestly, I get it. Valentina Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes, every time they're like over minus 500 every time, like clockwork. And I was talking with a friend. What's a little bit funny is now that we saw Amanda Nunes fall to Juliana Pena, it almost kind of begs that question, like when will we see these fighters finally lose? Because it has to be, you would think at some point, unless she retires the champ like Khabib. But I think this could be a good spot maybe to take Santos because of the same reason why Pena was able to pull off the upset. She had the power, she had the raw aggression, and she was able to submit her. And these women are getting a little bit older, we haven't seen her fall off yet. She looked really good against Lauren Murphy, but I mean, you have to think there's a certain time where that big underdog is worth taking a stab at. And I think it would be worth a little bit of a stab here. I still think Shevchenko is the much better fighter. She's 99 times out of 100, she's going to win this fight. She is the much better fighter. She's more experienced. But at some point, you have to wonder, could I take a little bit of a stab? I will actually say, just for the fun sake of it, I'm going to back Santos here as my official prediction just to get it done. I don't think she's the better fighter, but we've seen crazier things happen just most recently. So I don't know. I like taking a stab at it.
Okay, I'm going the other way here. My well, yeah, just to kind of get it out there, and I know it's kind of the obvious pick, but I think the other thing you have to look at with the Pena fight is that Amanda won that first round. The second round, she just for whatever reason gassed out. I don't know if it was COVID or what, and Pena took over. Pena is also, she was an Ultimate Fighter winner. She at least fought good competition with Santos. Like, I'm looking at the resume here. Her best win here is Joanne Wood, who last time I checked has a number of first round stoppage losses. Like, if you want to beat Joanne Wood, that's the way to do it. You take her out early. If you look at her resume, she's had a handful of fights where she's been finished in the first round. Roxanne Modafferi, who's retired, wasn't able to finish her. Jillian Robertson, who would get absolutely demolished by Valentina Shevchenko, went the distance with her. Molly McCann, like I agree with you that she has power. I don't think it's anything that Valentina hasn't seen here. And then to me, that's what it really comes down to. Like, had she finished some of these fights, like Roxanne or Jillian, I might give her a chance here. I just don't think that Valentina is going to be fazed by whatever Santos brings to the table here. She's on a 4-fight win streak. You know, I don't know. Like, to me, it's just there's nothing about her that really says, okay, maybe this could happen here. I think Valentina is still competing at a high level, still getting it done. She's finishing girls that don't get finished that often, like Lauren Murphy. Lauren's extremely tough to finish. Caitlin Chukagian, Jessica Ai. These are fighters that don't get finished in the UFC, but she's getting it done. I like Valentina in this fight. I don't like her at minus 650. I do like her inside the distance, though. It's a 5-round fight.
It's true.
She has been finishing a lot of her opponents here. And if you look at it, Shevchenko wins inside the distance here, I believe was, where are we here? Let me just go inside. Shevchenko inside the distance is plus 130. That's, I think, a great play there. If she gets it done, I don't see her taking it to the judges' scorecards. Anything can happen in a fight. I'm not oblivious to that. Ben might look like the biggest genius here next week when we're doing our show, but I don't see it in this situation. Like, it's not even a case of, Shevchenko, like, not fighting for a while or all these other things. Like, I think like she still got it. So I'm going Shevchenko to get it done. I
do think I like that inside the distance a lot, mostly because I think because of Santos, I don't think she's going to beat she knows she won't beat Shevchenko by decision necessarily. Yeah. So I think she will be probably a little more aggressive than usual, maybe tiring out a little bit quicker. This is I think this is her first time fighting 5 rounds.
5 rounds it is. Yeah, it
unless
is.
She did so that's another scene. But so that's another thing. That 4th or 5th, Lauren Murphy got finished in the 4th, right? So I mean, there is that too. She could get a little over aggressive in rounds 1, 2, and 3, looking for that quick finish, and then get finished herself a little bit later in the fight. So I do like that inside the distance prop a lot.
Let's talk about the main event. Now, this is a tricky fight. I think this is the hardest fight to pick on the card, and I'll explain my reasoning in a little bit. But the odds sort of indicate that right now. Glover Teixeira, Jiri Prochazka. Glover Teixeira, the light heavyweight champion, the underdog, plus 170 against Jiri Prochazka, minus 200. Really curious your pick on this one because it's, like I said, it's a tough one.
It is extremely tough, and I almost don't even know who to take in this side. I've flip-flopped back and forth so many times on this. I just keep flip-flopping. There's so many. There's honestly ways that you can look at it from both sides. Teixeira, I think if he lands a takedown on Jiri early, he can finish it just like he did against Blachowicz. But then again, Blachowicz, I mean, he looked uncharacteristically bad in that fight. It almost looked like he just kind of not gave up because he's a UFC fighter. I wouldn't say he gave up, but he looked very bad in that fight. Yeah. And I think Jiri, he has been training with Henry Cejudo. So, I mean, he's been working on that takedown defense a little bit. I think he's going to obviously try to keep this standing. He won't want to take it to the ground with Teixeira. But, I mean, if this stays on the feet, this could be over in 1 minute, or this could be drawn out towards a Teixeira finish. But, I mean, Yuri's power is absolutely undeniable. 10 knockout wins in a row. He's only had 2 UFC fights, though. But his work on the regional scene, he had some good experience. But 2 UFC fights does scare me a little bit. Does he have that experience to be able to stop Glover's takedowns and stop him from submitting him? I don't know. So you can look at the Teixeira sub angle, but then obviously Yuri's power. I mean, he is knocking anyone and everyone out right now. So, and Teixeira's 42, could be declining a little bit, but we're seeing the best Teixeira as we saw in the best fight. So, I mean, I am completely torn on this fight. I don't even have an official pick for it because I think maybe the only pick would be inside the distance, but I haven't seen the line on the under. It's probably juiced heavily. I don't know. That's really all I can say. I don't really have an official pick. How about you?
Well, yeah, let's have a quick look. I do have an official pick. So the over is the over 1.5 is minus 140. The under is plus 110. And then if you get a little bit higher here, over 2.5, minus 170. That's kind of what we think. To me, no matter what you're doing in this fight, you're guessing to a certain degree. We have to, because here's the thing. People like to bring up the experience that Jiri had in Ryzen. That's where he fought, and great promotion over in Japan. And he fought a couple of UFC vets, including Fabio Maldonado, CB Dalloway, Muhammad Lawal is a former Bellator champion. The problem is these guys went there after they had success in their respective promotions. So people always reference those wins. I don't think you can take too much away from those wins, to be honest. Now, a lot of these are ending inside the distance. So, as far as if this fight goes 5 rounds, how will Yuri's cardio be? I'm not entirely sure. You also mentioned the time at Fight Ready training with Henry Cejudo. I believe it was only about 2 weeks that he got to work with him. So I don't know if that's enough time to stop a Glover Teixeira takedown. So that's where things get interesting. But, I mentioned in the last fight, we're talking about Valentina Shevchenko and Talia Santos about things that, Santos was getting these wins, but nothing like really like that really stood out. Yuri has got wins that stood out. The finish he got on Dominic Reyes was a spinning elbow in the same fight where Yuri was knocked out momentarily, came to his senses and still finished Dominic Reyes, which is a great win. So, I mean, we have such a small sample size of Yuri, but what you're seeing him do are things that you're just not seeing other light heavyweights do, from the striking to the speed to so many different things. So you would think that continues in this fight. The question is that enough to take out a guy like Glover Teixeira, who, there was a point when he was getting knocked out and you thought maybe this is the beginning of the end, but he hasn't been finished in quite some time. He's fought guys with knockout power that, like Anthony Smith, like Thiago Santos. And, and again, what's tricky too is, Jan Blachowicz, I think he had a bad night against Glover. Like, I think that was part of it.
Definitely.
So Glover looks even better. So people now think, oh, Glover still got it, but maybe he doesn't. I don't know. We're going to see here. Glover's great on the feet. He's got knockout power. He's great on the ground. That's what he started with, jiu-jitsu. So, if this gets to the ground, I have no idea what Jiri Prochazka's ground game's like, because we haven't seen him fight anyone like that in the UFC.
Yeah.
I'm going Jiri only because I feel like, because he's younger, because he's doing this dynamic stuff, like I feel like this is something that Glover, it's going to be very hard for him to prepare for. And you mentioned the age at 42, like he's got to slow down. I think this might be the fight where it happens. The last thing I want to mention with Jiri that's a bit concerning too, the layoff. He hasn't fought. That fight against Dominic Reyes was over a year ago. That was in May of 2021. So how's he going to look with the time off? I don't know. This is a very, very risky fight. I think the way you do this is, if you want to get a little bit creative with the math here, you could bet Teixeira as an underdog. I do think there is value there, but you could also take Jiri inside the distance or maybe pick a round 1 or 2. Like, I don't know. Like, I think you get a bit creative with the odds here if you really sort of dig into it, but I'm taking Jiri. Again, we could be talking on Monday, next week about Glover Teixeira, win and how we all counted him out, but it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. This is the toughest fight on the card to pick. So.
Also, the thing about Teixeira is he's taken damage before, and in that same fight, in the same round, come back and shown that, gotten those crazy submission wins. Carl Roberson, he was knocked down in that fight, won by sub in the first round after getting knocked down. I think the other one's Thiago Santos, also knocked down, also won by sub in the third round. So, I mean, he's shown an ability to take damage and come back from it. Maybe it could be something like that again, but then again, Jiri is an extremely hard hitter, and most of his opponents have not gotten back up after getting knocked down. So it really is hard. You can make a very strong case for both sides in this fight. It is hard. Yeah,
really tricky main event. Just be careful if you're betting this one. I'm going to pick Jiri, but again, wouldn't surprise me if Glover won the fight. Yeah, you mentioned you like something on the prelims. I do as well, but I want to hear what you like as far as the prelims go.
Prelims. I was looking at Ramona Pascual versus Jocelyn Edwards. I do actually like Ramona Pascual as a plus 150 underdog here, just because simply Jocelyn Edwards' takedown defense. She was taken down 5 of 11 times against Jessica Rose Clark, 4 of 6 times against Carol Rosa, and 1 of 2 times against, even in her win, she was taken down 1 of 2 times and slightly outstruck to get that win. But in her last 2 losses, she's been absolutely controlled and dominated on the ground, being taken down 4 and 5 times. So I don't necessarily want to bet on someone like that as a minus 170 favorite against someone who will be looking to grapple and take her down. So I think this is a good spot to back a plus 150 underdog to start the night. Always love starting off with a bet on the first fight of the night. So I will be taking the underdog in that one.
Well, and Ramona's super tough. I mean, any other fighter that fought, what was her last opponent? Was it Nunes? I forget who it was, but I mean, she was taking some serious punishment in that fight. So, I mean, we know she's tough. Jocelyn Nunes, that's who I was thinking of. But yeah, it's a tricky fight because Edwards has been up and down, right? She's had some good fights. She's had some bad ones. It's really, and she's fighting at featherweight. I think bantamweight has been her weight class last couple ones. So I could definitely see an upset there as well. So I agree with that. I'll tell you one play I like here quickly. Jake Matthews, Andre Filiao. I really like Andre Filiao. It's his 3rd fight in however long. Like he's doing like the Donald Cerrone schedule these days. Jake Matthews is so hit or miss in my opinion. I think Andre Filiao can knock him out. He's been knocking out a lot of his opponents. Miguel Baeza, we saw Cameron Van Camp get knocked out in his last fight. I think the prop on Filiao by knockout is actually pretty decent. But either way, I even like him here straight up. I think this guy is coming into his own at the right time. And I think Jake Matthews is just, like I said, just hasn't performed like we all thought. Plus, going to be a little bit bigger in this fight. So I like Andre Filiao in the prelims too as a little prelim play for you guys there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that one too.
There we go. UFC 275 is going to be going down Saturday. Hope you enjoy the card. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week and enjoy the fights.